Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the bill before the House today for the Territory Coordinator. And Madam Speaker, this morning I was very proud to stand with the Minerals Council and unveil our Rebuilding the Economy strategy. And Madam Speaker, this strategy sums up the work we're already doing and builds upon our government's focus as we work towards making the Territory the best place to do business, both in Australia and globally. And some of that work, Madam Speaker, that we've already commenced is the payroll tax reforms, lifting that from $1.5 to $2.5 million, assisting our small and medium businesses to be able to do business better and reinvest in their workforce. And of course, making apprentice and trainee wages tax-free for all businesses across the Territory. And in addition to that, Madam Speaker, we've introduced our housing grants to try and stimulate the building industry, because we know we need to provide work in that industry, but not just that, Madam Speaker. Also, as one of our other strategies, is about building a bigger and better workforce. And to grow the Territory's economy, we need to increase our workforce capability. But Madam Speaker, we also need to create the economic and investment environment within the Northern Territory to get investment into the Territory to drive our economic growth. And as a small jurisdiction, Madam Speaker, the Territory should be one of the easiest places in Australia to do business. Being small makes us agile, but that agility is not there, Madam Speaker. And we know that the Territory can be a challenging place to do business with high logistical costs, workforce shortages and projects stalling for years as they try to manoeuvre through a very, very complex regulatory environment. And that's an environment created by the previous government. And the previous Labor government were focused on announcements rather than actually delivering for Territorians. And that's why we see ourselves in the financial situation that we're in now, Madam Speaker. And 8 years of an economically inept Labor government hasn't helped us, and it's made the Territory an even more unattractive place to do business, which is what we're trying to turn around. And I only have to look at the major project status, Madam Speaker, that was enacted by the previous government. And I actually know of a potential mine who actually came to Labor and they were offered major project status. And of course, all they did was got shuffled between different departments, and they said that their time was wasted just talking to more public servants, and there was absolutely no action. And that's what the Territory Coordinator is about, Madam Speaker. And if we consider what Tercy put forward, it mentioned something along these lines. And I picked up on the comment from the Leader of the Opposition about ramming this piece of legislation through. Well, Madam Speaker, we were here talking about this back in 2020 before the election. We brought this legislation before this House, I believe in 2021, and was shouted down. And Labor, after getting the Tercy report, moved on and I think created 3 positions to try and do the job of one. And really all that did was create more bureaucracy. And luckily, Madam Speaker, we've seen an increase in private investment under the CLP, which is great to see. And we've seen some numbers starting to creep up, which is heartening. But it's no wonder that private sector investment in the Territory remains well below the 10-year average. And the issue that we face, Madam Speaker, is that Territory is competing against other states and global economies for investment. And we need to maintain our status as a highly competitive tax environment and increase our attractiveness as an investment destination. And we have the ability to do that, Madam Speaker. We just need to unlock it. But it shouldn't have to be this way. The Territory has always punched well above its weight. We hold a competitive advantage in industries such as defence, energy, agriculture, mining and tourism due to our strategic geographic location and abundant natural resources. And as the Territory recovers from years of Labor, our full economic potential is still yet to be realised. We have the same resources as Western Australia. We could be the powerhouse of this country if we can unlock that investment and create that environment where investors want to come to the Territory and want to do business. And for too long, the Territory hasn't been that place. Madam Speaker, passing this legislation and making the Territory Coordinator a statutory officer is crucial to becoming a serious investment destination so that we can lock our key industries. And with the Territory Coordinator in place, we can rebuild the economy by cutting unnecessary red tape and reducing approval timeframes. And as we renew our relationship with our Asian neighbours, we want to become a serious investment partner for them, because when they invest in the Territory, they are investing in Territorians and Territorians' futures. Madam Speaker, we know that the Territory Coordinator is the sign our potential partners and investors are waiting for and are looking for, to show them that we are open for business. And that is what our economy needs. And that's what we must do if we're serious about rebuilding it. And as a Treasurer, I'm particularly interested and invested in making the Territory Coordinator a reality. Our budget is a mess and our debt is sky high, and the work that we've been doing over the past months to deal with the issues, those legacy issues left by Labor, are very, very difficult, I can tell you, Madam Speaker. But through the establishment of the Territory Coordinator, we can prioritise projects that will grow our own source revenue and get us on the path to achieving a budget surplus. The Territory Coordinator is key to enacting our fiscal strategy. Madam Speaker, I not only recognise the importance of the Territory Coordinator, of course, as the Treasurer, but I also recognise its importance as the member for Namatjira. For my community that I represent, by legislating the Territory Coordinator, large-scale projects in the regional and remote areas in my electorate will be made a reality. We're only now looking at the opportunity of Tivan near Atitjara, their fluorite mine, which will have great benefit to the people out there on the edge of the Plenty Highway. Then, of course, next door, which is not in my electorate, unfortunately, I wish it was, but Nolans Rare Earth. There's a commitment now between our government and the federal government to develop those rare earth capabilities at Nolans, but also the TELUS investment out at Titjikala. They were ready to invest in that community, and they just got the runaround by government, and they got the runaround again by government, so they packed up and went to Western Australia, and in 18 months they had their project over the line. But I'm glad to hear that TELUS are looking to come back to the Territory and looking to invest back in our communities. And I don't want my constituents to keep missing out on the economic development that the Territory could have realised years ago if Labor had taken action on removing complex regulatory hurdles and inefficient government processes. Madam Speaker, the Territory Coordinator will play a key role in ensuring efficient, coordinated and timely assessment and approvals that drive major projects forwards, and ones that will benefit not just my community in Central Australia, but the whole of the Northern Territory. Madam Speaker, I'm in support of this bill because the CLP is committed to making the Territory the best place to do business. And that's the signal that we're going to send to Australia and the signal that we're going to send to the world. We are the place to do business. We are the place to bring your money. We are the place to come and invest. Because, as I've said, Madam Speaker, we can be the powerhouse of Australia. We can equal or surpass Western Australia through our natural resources, and of course those benefits then flow to the people of the Northern Territory. Because it's this investment, Madam Speaker, that will help grow the Territory and help us do all those things that we want to do for our communities. Because sadly, we're beholden somewhat on the federal government for our GST revenue, and through our meagre revenue through our mines and our taxation here already. And to do those other things that we like to do requires some more money. Now, we're going to work hard on the federal government to make sure that we get our fair share of GST revenue and that we are supported here in the Territory. But the easier way to do it, Madam Speaker, is to get projects out of the ground, get projects moving, start to raise that all-important revenue for Territorians that we can then use to develop the Territory and benefit all Territorians. But, Madam Speaker, once established, the Territory Coordinator and the Minister will have the unique capacity to set strategic directions through the designation of significant projects, programs of work and territory development areas. And some of these areas, Madam Speaker, in particular are the infrastructure corridors to support the Beetaloo and the gas that's going to come out of that field. So and one thing's great to have the Beetaloo and the gas coming out the ground, but unless we can move it to where it's needed and where it can be exported and where it can generate more revenue from the territory, we are just spinning our wheels. So these are one of the specific territory development areas that we're considering. The approval of those territory development areas and plans and infrastructure coordination plans are a suite of requests and notices to coordinate and streamline complex regulatory processes. And that's what we've seen over many, many years, Madam Speaker, is the difficulty to get these things off the ground, because the regulatory system within inside the Northern Territory at the moment is very, very complex, it's very, very convoluted, and proponents find it extremely difficult to be able to drive investment and get their projects moving. And we've seen it time and time again. And this is why the CLP brought this to the election back in 2020 and why we brought it into the House in 2021. Because we know the need for investment in the Northern Territory. We understand the potential that we have and the uniqueness of our environment to be able to generate that all-important income through our natural resources. But not just our natural resources, Madam Speaker. I shouldn't forget the resources that we have in our agriculture and our cattle sector, but also in our tourism and specifically in our defence sector. We are a strategic location for Australia, and we see the investment now through the US and of course in Japan in coming to the Northern Territory and taking part and putting in investment for defence within our location. And that shows the commitment of our Asian and overseas neighbours and how they understand the importance and significance of Darwin and the Northern Territory as a strategic priority in defence longer term. And we know that Defence Australia are the same. You only have to look at the investment over the past years into defence in the Northern Territory to understand how they view our strategic priority here. The investment into Coonawarra, into Robertson Barracks, and the investment that continues to go on down in Katherine at Tyndall is of course of great benefit to the Territory and helps our development. But in effect, the Territory Coordinator will be a crucial piece moving forward to drive investment, to drive, of course, our economy forward by prioritising projects that are of economic benefit to all Territorians, to ensuring that those projects are front and centre, are getting the voice that they need to make sure that they progress and are not just left on the back burner or sitting on a shelf somewhere. They need the ability to cut through the red tape, to be able to make sure that they get that surety going forward so that their investors know that they have the capacity and the trust in the system and the government within the Northern Territory to bring their money here and to deliver those all-important projects that will benefit everyone here in the Northern Territory, not just in the few years into the future, but into those long outer years where we can see those long-term projects developing our economy, bringing new families to the Territory to put down roots, to call the Territory home, and of course grow this place into what we know that it can be, which is that powerhouse within Australia, that economic driver for Australia, and of course the people of the Territory will reap those rewards into the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.